Welcome to the Movie Heaven, Movie Hell Fright Fest special with me, Simon Aitken, and
Keith Eyles and
Mike Tack and
Clive Ashenden.
And we're four filmmakers who are going to talk about the films we saw at Fright Fest this year.
Indeed. Fright Fest 2015, which is the 27th to the 31st of August. And we watched a lot of films in that time, didn't we?
Certainly did. Some good, some average, some pretty poor, but not too bad.
Would you say this was a better year?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, definitely one of the best years I've had going to Fright Fest. I think that it's, the overall quality was really, really good, and having moved to the new environments of the View West End Cinema in Leicester Square last year, and things were still a bit in flux. This year, everything works, so it was great.
Yeah, I would second that.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it, even though I wasn't going to be there.
What? How come you turned up, Simon? Because you said you weren't going to be there, you sneaky person.
Yeah, the end of the pre-Fright Fest podcast, you said that you wouldn't be going this year. So tell us about it, Simon. What happened?
Well, what happened was I turned up for the Fright Fest quiz the night before, and I was having such a good time that I thought, shit, I can't miss it, because otherwise I'm just going to be, at home or wherever I was, sort of, being rather annoyed that I wasn't there. So I actually bought a ticket from a couple who were there. Their friend couldn't make it, a chap called Dermot O'Connor, who he had to stay behind to look after his grandfather.
He had a bizarre gardening accident, didn't he?
No, he didn't. No, he unfortunately had his tickets booked, his hotel, everything, and then his grandfather got ill, so he couldn't make it down, unfortunately. But I was just happy that he got some money back for that.
Yeah,
and we were happy to have you there, Simon.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
were
indeed.
we?
Yeah,
I was.
Were.
Right.
I was.
Even though the Fright Fest, though, was incredibly enjoyable and a really fun time, there was some sad news that weekend, wasn't there?
Yes, there was. Wes Craven passed away.
That was on the Sunday, was it Sunday or the Monday? The Monday, the last day, wasn't it?
It was Monday, yes.
Yeah, very sad.
Yeah.
So he will be missed, and no doubt at some point in the future we will talk about Wes Craven, I'm sure, but he definitely deserves special. Yeah, well, very funny. But he definitely enjoyed. He definitely deserved mention, is what I'm trying to say on this podcast.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, he reinvented himself over different time spans of his career. He had the early days with Last House on the Left and the really sort of nasty, edgy stuff he was doing with like The Hills Have Eyes. Then a few years passed, and then he reinvented himself with Freddy Krueger, who's, if you create a horror icon like that, I mean, that's amazing. And then he does it again a few years later with Scream. So, and with a few cool films in between. So he's actually, he's actually an absolute legend, really, in terms of horror film. He's up there with Carpenter and Argento.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
His early work.
I mean, he's really going to be missed. I mean, there won't be any more films from him now, which is such a loss.
Well, he was 76, so it had to stop eventually. I mean, look what Carpenter does at his age now. It's pretty ropey compared to his heyday. But I actually think it's interesting that Wes Craven, as I said, he managed to maintain some consistency, and despite going through times when he probably wasn't flavour of the month, and especially if after having a lot of success to come up with some other really cool ideas that he did do was very creative and imaginative person. So
yeah, and he was very supportive of other filmmakers. I mean, I remember for a long time, sort of during the 90s, you always see Wes Craven Presents, and putting his name above a film like that helps get it out there.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And like you said, he did reinvent himself. What I always found quite interesting was the fact that they then brought out the spoof, the like scary movie films. And I thought to myself, they kind of missed the point here because Scream was kind of a pastiche on that other work anyway. So
originally Scream was going to be called Scary Movie, but
exactly.
they couldn't get the names. They couldn't get the rights to the name, so they had to go with Scream instead.
Yeah.
The only thing that really worries me is that with the sort of people we've got today, if you think of all the classic horror films we grew up watching and all those directors, and before that they had Hitchcock, if all we've got to fall back on is M. Night Shyamalan, that worries the shit out of me.
Oh god, yeah, he's got a found footage film coming out, isn't he?
Yes, yeah.
It's up to us. It's up to us then, isn't it, to pick up the torch, right, guys?
Yay! That's what I like to hear. Absolutely. Watch this space, listeners. Or sorry, listener.
Yeah.
Well, saying that, we certainly have more than one listener because we met a couple of them at FrightFest. So
indeed,
it's good to know that people are listening to the show.
Yeah, I strong-armed that bloke that was unfortunately sat between me and Keith and press ganged him into becoming a listener. Andy, his name was.
Yeah, we did we spread the word a little bit and gained a few more listeners, which is always good. So to those people, if they're still listening, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, who's going to go first? Because I don't want to go first.
All right. Clive, would you like to go first? Your pick for movie heaven.
My pick for movie heaven is the Hallow. And am I right in saying that none of you guys actually saw this one?
No, because it was at the Discovery screen.
Yeah, I wish I'd seen it because it was on at the same time as something else that wasn't particularly good that we'll come to. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to when this does get a release, which I believe is in November. Is that right?
I think it's definitely towards the end of the year and it's getting quite a big push. So,
and I do know that Clive was very lucky that someone actually felt sorry for him and gave him their ticket for this event, didn't they, Clive?
Yes, I'm indebted to you, Mike, because I wasn't able to book a ticket for this one because it was one of the Discovery screenings, and it sold out very quickly. But Mike, having much better broadband than me, as we've established over the past few months, was able to get in there and get a ticket. And you wanted to see some kind of hate, I think, instead. So you let me have the ticket.
That was really good. That was.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be. We will say for the listeners that this is going to be a spoiler-free edition of Movie Heaven, Movie Hell. So I'm saying that partly for my own benefit because I don't want to actually know any spoilers from the Hallow. But yes.
Well, I mean, none of you guys saw it, so I could make up anything here, couldn't I? I could say it was about these. It's about this couple that live in an affluent apartment in New York, and every now and then a ghost pops up and goes, "Oh, hello."
The only worrying thing is we don't know whether it's any good, Clive. Just because you're saying it's good, we actually don't know.
That's true. Yeah, you have to take it on trust. But not for long because it's coming out soon. So yeah. I mean, the Hallow. This is one that came with a lot of buzz off the back of a number of festival screenings. I think, and the only reason it wasn't a main screen film, I think there's a few like this, is because it was kind of a preview screening, I think, rather than a premiere of some kind. So even though you had director Corin Hardy there, and a couple of the cast members who did an interesting Q&A afterwards, it wasn't being, it was pushed off to one side, but this is one of those films I wanted to see with a FrightFest audience, and I was so glad I did because it's the best audience to see a horror film with anyway. And for me, it lived up to the hype. I won't go into it too much, but it involves this couple and their sort of almost newborn son who move to a remote mill house in rural Ireland because of Adam's job as a tree surgeon, and he's slightly complicit in the sort of destruction of the local forest, and it arouses hostility for the locals, and also something in the woods. So for me, this kind of worked as like a real sort of homage to things like Lucio Fulci, Evil Dead era Sam Raimi. You've got like credits for Fake Shemps at the end of the movie, which will be familiar to all Evil Dead fans. And it's just a really kind of nerve shredding movie with great monsters, and I recommend it to everyone.
What country did this originate from?
It's a UK film, but it's set in Ireland, and it sort of plays off UK and Irish sort of folklore.
Oh, an Irish horror film that actually is any good. That's a rarity.
Oh God, yeah, there was that film quite a few years ago, wasn't there? About the Banshee and those really badly looking CGI skeletons. Yeah.
Is that Scream of the Banshee?
It was I know they had the Scream of the Banshee. I think it was like it was kind of like sort of Evil Dead or along. It had a similar title to that.
Wasn't it called The Pile of Shite?
I will stand up for Raw Meat was one of them, I remember. But I would stand up for Isolation, which I'm not sure was a Northern Irish or an Irish production, but I thought that was really good.
Oh, okay.
I felt like I was covered in pig shit after watching that film. It was so dirty and damp and everything. It was very well done. The creature was a bit pony though, wasn't it?
I thought it was good. I thought that worked well. You only got it in glimpses, and yeah. We'll have to agree to differ on that then, Mike.
Yeah.
Just for a change.
Yeah. So the director was there, was he?
He was, yeah. Writer, director, Corin
Did they let loose the budget? Any details on the budget? How much it cost or anything? Or
not in I couldn't stick around for all the Q&A because I had to rush off to another screening. But no, they didn't. But it talks interestingly about sort of like themes and stuff and things I can't talk about without spoiling the film. I won't. But.
So I just want to know. So out of all the films that were at Fright Fest, why was this the best one?
I think it's the best pure horror movie for me that I saw. I mean, there's other very good movies. I mean, some of which we're going to talk about that I would, some of your guys' picks I would definitely put in my sort of top 5. But a lot of them were more, they're either sort of genre mashups or they're more thrillers than they are horror movies. So for me, it was just great to see a really good UK horror movie, and I thought it might be the best UK horror movie since The Descent.
Oh wow!
Wow. Okay,
that is high
praise indeed. Yeah, and no, I mean I agree. There was a lot of good stuff to choose from this year. So much to the point. Do you want to give a little plug, Clive, for your the written review that you've done with your top 13 films from Fright Fest?
Yes, I've written an article for Rob Wicking's excellent website, excusesandhalftruths.com, and called The Devil's Dozen, unless he retitles it before he puts it up, which is my top 13, because I thought it was such a strong year, I couldn't really just restrict myself just to talking about top 10. So I did a top 13, and I saw 22 movies, so I think that's pretty good.
No, very good.
So, Keith, what was your pick for Movie Heaven?
Right, well, my pick from Movie Heaven was a film that was shown on the second day, on the Friday, and it was the second film shown on that day. And it was a European premiere of a film called Landmine Goes Click. All right, bit of an odd title, I know. But it was, whereas in the previous podcast, I talked about the fact that I really liked Cheap Thrills because it was essentially sort of 4 people in one environment where some, the tension really ramps up. In a similar way, it only really had sort of 4 or 5 main characters. The big difference being this was out in the open, and it involves American tourists that are crossing desolate mountains in war-torn Republic of Georgia. In fact, it is a Georgian film in the English language, though, most of it. And these three American tourists, there's basically a couple and his best man, and they're basically, as I said, they're in the middle of nowhere hiking. They stop to take a picture, a photograph, and one of them actually finds himself standing on a landmine. And it's one of these situations where he just cannot move, because he'll set this off. And again, I don't want to give spoilers away on this, but let's just say that the friendship gets questioned. It becomes very tense, and then basically a guy is out hiking with his dog, and comes across them, and of course they ask him for help, and he turns out to be a rather nasty character himself. And it's one of those movies which you sort of think is going to be one thing, and midway through it turns into something else. In fact, there were this seemed to be a vogue theme this year of movies setting themselves up to be one thing, and halfway through the second act doing a bit of a 180 that you don't expect, and turning into something else. But I thought it was very effective. I know there were some people that didn't enjoy this film, but for me, it did have me on the edge of my seat and intrigued and interested the whole time. It's also quite interesting that this wasn't, I don't know what the budget of this film was, but it wasn't a massive budget film. And it's, I didn't know that this guy previously, but one of the main actor in it was a chap called Sterling Knight, and apparently his background is he's one of those sort of Disney kids, this sort of squeaky clean Disney kid actor. And obviously this was a very, very different role for him, a much darker role. The film is very dark. As I said, I don't want to give away spoilers on this, but some pretty nasty stuff happens in it. And I just thought it was really well done. Apart from that, there were a couple of technical things, actually. No,
no, don't go into that. I mean, you told me this at Fright Fest, and I was watching the film after you guys, and I didn't see it.
Did
and
you
so
not?
Don't ruin it for people. If they, just leave it be.
All right. No, I mean, hey, I'm praising the film. I'm calling it movie heaven. So, I'm not slanging it off.
I mean, you were so keen to tell me, oh, yeah, watch out for this bit. There's this technical moment which they'd really spoil.
Well, I was just very surprised. I was very surprised by it. But it didn't take, for me, even though I noticed this, it didn't take anything away from the film. Yeah. I mean, the film really worked. I bought into it. I bought into the story. I bought into the characters. And it left me feeling, quite uncomfortable about some things at the end. So hopefully this is enough not to spoil it, but to intrigue people to maybe go watch it. Whether or not it's going to get a big release, I really couldn't say. It is a pretty small, low budget film.
I doubt it.
I think it's been picked up by the Fright Fest label, isn't it?
Right. Well, good on them, because it's a film that I thought was, and like Clive said, this year was a strong year. I had a lot of films. After I watched this one, there are a lot of other films I was thinking, oh shit, maybe that should be movie heaven. I hope one of the other guys picks one of those so I can talk about it, which you did on some of them. But I thought I'm going to go with my first sort of gut instinct, and this was the first film that got me, thinking. It was, as I said, it was the second day. It was actually the fifth film we'd seen by that point, and it was the one that made the biggest impact on me up to that point. So yeah, go check it out. Landmine Goes Click.
I really enjoyed it.
I was just going to say that this film I nearly walked out of.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, at a certain point, and it was only because I bumped into you guys before, and you said, "Oh, it's really good," that I sort of stayed and watched the rest of it.
Are you glad you did?
I did, yeah. The third act really redeems what had happened at that point that made me want to walk out. It was actually in my screening, there was a few walkouts.
I know exactly what it is because I made the comment outside to one of the Fright Fest organisers. I said that scene went on far too long. It was gratuitous, and he said, "Yeah, the director's already actually picked up on that, and he's going to change it."
Yeah.
So.
Right, he's going to re-edit it, is he?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So he sort of knows, but it was just ridiculous how long it went on. It was just I don't know. Even I must admit, I know people get close to the material when they're editing it and stuff like that, but even I thought, well, surely you would have picked that up. Do you know what I mean? You would have picked that up.
Or maybe you just wanted to see how it would play.
Yeah, I mean, something.
It's a bit of a risk, isn't it?
Something, and this isn't a spoiler at all, but something I know that I think me and Mike had some discussion about it after the film, in terms of a photography thing, is the actual opening credits are quite interesting because what it does, it establishes that they're in this foreign country and that they are in the middle of nowhere. And we couldn't figure out whether it was a really good sort of aerial or drone shot or whether it was actually a model. And it was really difficult to tell, wasn't it?
Right. I watched it. It was definitely drone footage.
It was lower quality, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just that weird thing. Just the way they shot it, it did make it look like a model.
Yeah.
The other thing is that drone footage, unless you get a really expensive one and you want to keep it level and that, they don't actually go as fast that cars can just trundle along at. And I noticed that in more than one film. So from a filmmaking perspective, I've noticed that a lot of these films are doing a little bit of setting up the opening credits. It's a classic thing, setting up with a bit of drone footage just to give you that sort of expensive feel. But it looked like the camera they used was a 720p camera or something. But, fair play, they did it. But
well, yeah, another film that used drone footage at the beginning was Schizo Diabolico, and I have to say, it didn't help that how they were projecting it didn't look great either.
No, it didn't, and I noticed that that's something that you're going to see in a lot of low-budget films.
Well, it gives it that expensive, like helicopter aerial shot feel. But
I will say though, I did see one short film where they used drone footage very well, and that was for the Clemens brothers' surgery.
Yeah. That's the point. You've got to use it creatively. Don't use it just think it's a helicopter.
They were using it on going towards a stationary object instead of following a moving object like those other two examples.
Well, you could see that the footage was speeded up as well because the car was sort of nipping around. The brake lights were going on erratically. It looked like it was like a bit of Benny Hill, like slightly speeded up. And then you saw when it's finally got down to it was close enough, it sort of, they corrected the speed. Now, maybe most normal people won't notice that, but I thought that stood out.
Back to Landmine Goes Click anyway. It was nice to see a Georgian low-budget horror film that I thought, was horrific in its own way, and I thought it was very effective. I can understand how some people think it crossed a certain line, and I totally get and buy into that as well. Be interested to see how it is actually released then, and if it's released as a recut version of what we saw, but nonetheless, I found it very effective and very entertaining. So Landmine Goes Click is my movie heaven.
And I agree, that was nearly on my list. That is on my list. That's one of the top films I saw at Fright Fest, definitely.
Yeah, definitely worth seeing.
Right, do you want to hear my best one?
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. What's your pick for movie heaven?
It's a film called Rabid Dogs. And it's actually a remake of a 70s film done by Mario Bava, who originally started the film off and then I think had some production problems or someone snuffed it or something along the line, and then I think his kids then finished it, but basically this film that he made is a bit of a sort of cult classic, and I'd not seen the original. So going into this, I thought, ooh, this looks interesting, because I quite like films that don't necessarily follow the total horror aspect. I like the crime thrillers, and this is basically a remake, and it's I think is it French Canadian language, so it wasn't in English.
It is in French.
It's a French film,
but it's Canadian though, isn't it?
No, it's French.
Is it?
It's French.
Is it French?
Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay, I thought they were in Canada.
No.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check on that. If I had the program, I would. So what it is, it's a heist movie. So it's set up that there's these guys who do this bank robbery, and what they do in order to effect their escape, they take on board in their car a couple of hostages. And it's effectively a road movie. It's very I don't know. It's sort of felt very similar to a bit like the Gecko Brothers when they were in From Dusk Till Dawn, the first part, where they're on the road and they're trying to get away from the cops. But this one is very stylish. It's beautifully shot. The color, the quality of the acting is top notch, and it all leads up to a very, very interesting conclusion. And I like it because it's one of these films where, when they lay little clues throughout the film that later on you go, that's why this was said, or that's why this happened, or that's what I liked about the film, was that everyone's looking for the twist and all this sort of stuff, and I was absolutely clueless pretty much until literally the final 10 minutes of the film, if that. And maybe if you'd seen the original, you probably know some of the story, because apparently a lot of people said the original was better than this version, so I definitely need to track that down.
Me too.
And I like the way that it had some bizarre events on the journey, so it's not just about filling up with petrol and maybe the usual tropes of the cops have put a roadblock up or anything like this. There's a really bizarre thing that happens in the film which then sort of leads you to think certain things are going to happen. It had a very sort of Wicker Man-esque feel when it got to that part of the film, so the film does move around emotionally and thematically on this journey, and obviously you do get the usual things where, well, they're all criminals, are they gonna turn on each other, are they gonna make it to where they are gonna they're aiming for so they can escape with the loot, do you want them to? And again, it's like Keith was saying, it's a very small cast really. The opening scenes are fantastic. There's some great just action scenes of the bank robbery, post the bank robbery, with all the public and the police and everything going crazy. And there's lots of moments of tension. And this film just ticked all the boxes. It was a great, cracking sort of yarn. I love the acting. I love the way it was shot and the way it looked. And it had a glossy sheen, but it had that Euro glossy sheen. If you've ever seen Mes or any of the Leon films, things like that, it just looked like it was a really good story with a really good budget, and it made by filmmakers that knew what they're doing. So I'd say it's more of a horror, but it's a crime thing with horror, tiny bits of horror or violence. There's certainly violence in it.
Yeah.
But I like the grittiness, and I like crime-esque violent films, and it's more of that genre. But it's a bit like the Horseman, gritty and very well made, but not necessarily ghosts and goblins and people having their heads torn off by zombies. It's not that sort of horror film, but it totally deserved an audience. Like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, that's not really a horror film per se, although you could say that any event with horrific violence in is a horror film. So that film, I came out of that film and I was like, yeah, that kicked ass, and I really enjoyed the payoff and the layers that they'd put down in the film. So I was totally satisfied, and everything made sense, and it was just a cracking, well-made movie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I bumped into you guys before seeing this one, because the screen I was in, it was the last film of the night, and I was going to give it a miss, but I was very glad I stayed. And I have to say, out of all the films shown there, it had the best opening title sequence.
Yeah.
Oh, it was very, yeah. I mean,
almost James
was
Bond.
Very, yeah. I mean, it was very slick. I mean, the way it was set up at the beginning was very slick and stylish. It was almost like a sort of Michael Mann type crime film. And no, I agree entirely with you. I this was right up my alley. I really enjoyed this, and it was slick, and it had a nice payoff, and it was an interesting journey. And also, there is something sometimes very enjoyable about watching, if you like, foreign or non-Hollywood films where you don't know, because it hasn't got recognizable actors in it, or Tom Cruise or whatever. You don't know exactly who's going to be the hero and what's going to happen. It reminded me kind of. There was a film a few years back, that film Headhunters, based on the
Josh
the Joan Nesbo film, and it was kind of that was a really enjoyable ride because you had no idea where it was going, and this in many respects reminded me of that. And
I think that's the attraction, Keith, is that with foreign films, for me, I watch a lot of Indonesian and Asian films. And it's just the fact, totally, you don't know what to expect. And sometimes you think they're a bit wild in their tangents. They're not really. They're just, you just don't know who's who.
Yeah, exactly.
And you get a bit of a cultural flavour of these films as well. So that's why I'm not one of these people. There's some people, which amazes me. They go, as soon as there's subtitles, they switch off. Maybe they can't fucking read, but it's like, that always confuses me. Why someone would not want to watch a film that is very well made and really slick, just because of some subtitle issues.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So 10 out of 10 for me on that one. And easily on an equal standing with Landmine Goes Click. I mean, we all had to choose a different one, so for me that was a real highlight of the festival.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you chose it because I agree entirely with you on this one. What did you guys think?
Well, I really enjoyed it as well, and I think it's definitely one of my picks from the festival. I really enjoyed it.
Clive?
I also really enjoyed it. I liked not just the sort of slickness of it, and I mean, it is a very violent crime film. It's not like sort of like people get shot and then they fall down. I mean, there's blood everywhere. It's gory. There are gory moments.
That's the bit I like. Yeah.
And I like the fact it throws you into it sort of in media res. The robbery's already happened, and then immediately things are going wrong, and it's this escalation all the time. And the fact that there's this, even though it's obviously from this sort of Mario Bava inspiration, it felt more like a early John Carpenter, like a Assault on Precinct 13 or something like that.
Yeah,
especially with the way the police are characterized as this sort of this
faceless force,
faceless force that's just closing in and the noose tightening ever.
The tension and suspense was awesome.
Yeah, because I mean, I heard somebody say, somebody afterwards. I don't know. I've obviously not seen the Mario Bava film, but somebody said that it literally just sort of took the title and basic premise, but it was actually quite different to that film. Have any of you guys seen it? I mean,
no, I've not seen the original.
No. I kind of want to now.
Absolutely.
That's the good thing. Again, with doing all this stuff is it makes you go away and watch other versions and similar films and things of that nature. And if I happen to see that around as a DVD or a Blu-ray purchase, I may well go for it. I think based on this film. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure it's available through Arrow Films.
Quite possibly. Yeah, I haven't checked, I must admit. But
I must admit, it was quite hard choosing that one because there's another foreign language film, but I think one of you guys might have picked it. But that's one of my highlights of the fest. Well, we'll get to that.
Leads nicely onto my pick, which I did. I did pick the other one. So my choice for movie heaven is a film called Night Fair.
Oh, yeah. Fabulous.
And this was quite a nice surprise because this is a Monday morning film. And you know me in Monday morning films.
Well, it's Monday afternoon for us, actually.
Oh, okay.
That's because of the discovery screen. I don't think you can rely on the Monday morning issue now, because different people will have a different Monday morning film.
Yes.
Well, the main screens, yeah.
Again, you guys saw this one before me, and you were like, "Yeah, you gotta watch it, gotta see it." I did, and I really loved it. And the story it's about an English guy who's come back to Paris to see his ex-girlfriend and his mate, who he sort of ran out on years before, and they go out, out on the town, and they decide to sort of get a taxi to another location, and they run out in the cab. They run out the fair, and then the cab driver then chases after them for the rest of the film. But the thing is, that's what you think the film is actually about, but it's not. It is about something else, and to tell you is to ruin the surprise.
Absolutely.
Because it's one of those surprises which changes the film totally.
Yeah.
It's not just a twist, it just changes the whole premise of the story. And it's really well done. And of course, the amazing thing about it was that they came up with the concept and made the film within 3 months.
I know, I was massively impressed with that when they had the Q&A afterwards. I was like, my God, that's inspiring. Yeah.
Well, the other thing is that the actual thing that Simon is talking about was something that they actually came to arrive at after they'd shot most of the film.
Yes.
That's the other incredible thing.
Yeah.
And for the better, really.
No,
Tell us something about the style and the look, Simon.
It's very much style-wise, it's very much like Collateral. It's all digital photography, but it's also got a touch of the Terminator, from the fact that you never really see the cab driver's face at first. It's as he goes along, you get to see more and more of him. But it's the way he's sort of very methodical, and he doesn't rush in, and he does seem to be like an unstoppable force. I mean, at one point, I actually thought he was supernatural.
It looked like Maniac Cop to me when I saw the trailer, which again, the trailer is very good.
Yeah, I mean, they say it's sort of Maniac Cop meets Taxi Driver, don't they? In the marketing material, which I thought was actually quite good. I mean, Clive, you actually likened it to something, and I thought that was a really good. You hit the nail on the head. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's difficult to talk about this film without getting into spoilers, but I will tread carefully. Obviously, for most of the film, it's this very slick, drive, only God forgives sort of style slasher movie, really, set in this neon-drenched Parisian landscape. But then you get that turn, which then totally takes the film into a whole different territory. And for me, it was what makes it really memorable. I mean, I thought that this is like, for me, it's like the new Old Boy. It just, in terms of, you're following what you think is, happening, and then at the end there's a big reveal, and also you've got these really well sort of orchestrated sort of violent scenes, and just the whole the way it all comes together. That was what it brought to mind for me.
I thought the Paris footage where they had a car, a really cool looking car with shot at night with all the lights reflecting and on the bonnet, and they made the car almost look like a character as well.
Yeah, totally.
Because it was all
it was a Chrysler, wasn't it? Yeah. It was very nice, very slick. But yeah, again, we're not having a lot of disagreements here, because for me as well, this had actually, in fact, the Monday was very strong because it actually followed. We'd had a premiere of Ian Softly's latest film, Curve, which was massively enjoyable. And, you know, it sort of came out of that buzzing and then straight into this one. And, you know, as I said, particularly when the guys did their Q&A and, you know, they talked about the fact that they'd managed to sort of turn this round, you know, from concept to completion in 3 months with very little budget. And, you know, it was really inspiring because this film absolutely worked. And I totally agree with what Clive said in so much as I remember I saw Old Boy, the original Old Boy, not that American remake, but I saw that at the Raindance Film Festival some years back when it opened. And again, you know, it was one of those films I wasn't really sure what to expect, and I came out thoroughly satisfied with it. And obviously, I found you know, Spike Lee's remake disappointing because they tried to make it all sort of realistic, and they sort of missed the point, because the reason the original worked so well was because it was very stylized. And you know, so but yeah, I thought it was also a very strong film, and glad you Simon picked it as movie heaven, so we all got to talk about it.
Well, that's it. Well, I think just to sort of finish off this section is, if there's another film you could recommend, what film would it be?
Ooh,
Turbo Kid.
The Turbo Kid was great.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Turbo Kid was one of those not normally my kind of thing, but I thought that this was so wonderfully crafted and thought through, and the production design with the whole 80s thing was really good, and that was just a great, you know, second film in the festival. So that was very enjoyable.
Yeah, Bait was very good. I enjoyed Bait. I thought it had like the best villain in it.
Dominic Brunt, yeah, that was very good. Oh yeah,
it was very surprising. Yeah, very surprising, because you know you're kind of thinking, oh my god, is this going to be Emmerdale? You know, Emmerdale with violence or something. But it was good. I also liked. I have to say, I enjoyed the reimagining of Frankenstein.
I nearly fell asleep in that one.
Did you?
Yeah,
no, I missed that one.
I'd agree with you there, Keith. I thought that was it had a really fresh take on it.
It was good
to do with changing the point of view that we view the story through. So
yeah, I mean, all the beats, definitely. All the beats were completely from Mary Shelley's, you know, story completely. But you know, I thought the idea of bringing sort of organic 3D printing into it to bring it into the 21st century was a really good. You know, a really interesting idea and concept. And you know, obviously this was a bigger budget film set in contemporary Los Angeles and whatever, with Danny Huston and Carrie Ann Moss and Tony Todd. But I'm sure it'll probably get that. I think it's March next year. It's getting a proper theatrical release, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think that's what they said.
As I said, I just thought that I don't know. I was feeling it maybe because of we saw like 25 films over the whole weekend. It was just at the point of the day where it just dragged on a little bit for me in a couple of places. But I did like the overall idea, and the guy playing the main part was who later I was told is some famous actor that was in Twilight or something. So I obviously
Xavier Samuel. Yeah,
I know Simon is familiar with that, but I'm not.
He's also in a really great horror movie called The Loved Ones. Which,
oh god, yeah.
I didn't realise it was him.
Which is another FrightFest treat from a few years back.
Yeah, that was really good.
I'll tell you another surprise. I mean, I appreciated this because you could really feel the love that had gone into it from the filmmakers. Was Deathgasm, which I wasn't sure I'd like, but I actually thoroughly enjoyed.
Oh, and I heard about that one. I thought this was going to be a real blast, and it was. It really sort of fulfilled the promise that it was offering.
It was superb, actually. Deathgasm.
Yeah.
So hard to make a decent horror comedy.
So I was going to ask Mike, what did you think as a metal fan, like watching Deathgasm? Because obviously it's all about that.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious. There's lots of in jokes and things about being in a band and all those sorts of hilarity, all the hilarity and all all the crap you do when you're in a band. So it was great, and I like that. Were they New Zealand or something? They had a really good.
Were, yeah.
Yeah, I think again that lends it a different sort of vibe, really, being a rather than American, Wayne's World take on the genre. I thought that it was very well done, and as a late night film, I had a blast.
I know another one you and I both like, Mike, was Shut In.
Shut In
was a surprise.
That was definitely, that was nearly my movie heaven, because I thought that was a very, very good, again, surprising twist, and I find it quite interesting when they do these horror movies about someone's psychosis, where they're, for one reason or another, they've got some issues, and what happens when they're then brought together with, humanity or the outside world, and what happens with, I mean, you could say the same of like Psycho. That's the same thing. What happens when someone that's a bit doolally comes and meets, the real world. So I think that the theme was good, and the actress in that was superb, really good.
Yeah.
And that's definitely a film I would say that, even though it hasn't made our movie heaven, it's definitely up there with the best of them. And the other one was the Christmas film. I think that was the who's chosen that?
Nobody's chosen that. Right. No. I was going to say we'll move it on, because otherwise I think we could go through the whole program.
Well,
that's good.
It was strong, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was strong. Yeah, it was very strong. Yeah, it was very strong.
Yeah.
But we have to move on to the poor ones now, the ones we didn't like, the ones we thought weren't great. So,
yes,
Clive, what was your pick for movie hell?
My pick for movie hell. Well, I've said I think it's a really strong festival, and there wasn't anything I really hated. There were a few films I thought were below average and or had problems. So, but my pick for movie hell is Tales of Halloween, which is the big closing night gala film. It's
controversial.
It's an anthology film. I know, there were quite a few people that actually really enjoyed this one, and
I did.
A fair play to them.
One. Yeah,
but I thought it was all right.
Well, I didn't, so there we go. No, it's almost it almost feels a bit banal to say with an anthology film that it's, especially one with it where you got, in this case, 11 different directors, that it's going to be a mixed bag. It's going to be a bit of a curate's egg, only ever be good in parts. But maybe I was just tired because it was Monday and it was the last film, but it didn't really work for me. I mean, I will stay on the positive and sort of pick out 3 of the stories which I thought were really good. There was one directed by Darren Allen Boseman called The Night Billy Raised Hell.
Oh, that one was brilliant. That was my favourite one.
Which may be the best one. I really like Lucky McKee one called Ding Dong. With like Pollyanna McIntosh in. Well, I really liked it, Mike. And there's one called The Ransom of Rusty Rex, directed by Ryan Schifrin, with a nice cameo from John Landis.
That was quite fun.
Which is quite fun. And there were the others were okay. I mean, it for me, it had a feeling of like a group of like pals have got together and they've made a horror movie, and it just some parts just felt a little bit lazy. Maybe, I mean, it doesn't help that there's already a great and I mean great like Halloween themed anthology movie called Trick or Treat.
Oh, amazing! Yeah,
so.
Well, I think the Christmas film really really put it in its place, really, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
Christmas horror story.
I never got to see that one, so I'm really looking forward to checking that out.
That was one of the best films of the festival, I reckon.
William Shatner as a DJ. Who could go wrong?
And it's just the ending worked really well. I mean, that was the thing that sort of, you came out going, bloody hell, that was really good. Because there was some parts of that Christmas story that didn't work, and there was others that it worked really well. but the ending did just knocked it out the park. So, you know, when it comes to Tales of Halloween, they were kind of like, it was very feeble in comparison.
I agree.
Well, I didn't get to see that one, but I mean, for me, it's just, I think some of it's just a lot of the humor was just falling flat for me, and it was, it felt like a lot of pandering, like, oh, look, here's another name cameo, here's another sort of winky moment. I mean, you know, it's nice to see Adrian Barbeau sort of crop up.
I wonder what you're going to say then.
Doing a Stevie Wayne type DJ from the Fog sort of winking bit, which sort of links things together with a VO. But it wasn't helped that I thought this had a really ropey looking title sequence.
It wasn't great, was it?
It's supposed to be like a sort of pop up book, but the way it was done in this sort of CG animation, it didn't look very nice, which didn't help. And the way she pops up, it reminded me of the sort of the infamous sort of Doctor Who Children Need Special Dimensions in Time.
Yeah, we had to fucking bring fucking Doctor Who into it, didn't we?
No, it's just suffice to say that there were things in it which made me sort of go, oh, that's a shame, because there are really good parts in this. So I'm not completely throwing the film under the bus, because I think it's, you know, it has some.
What film that you actually, just out of interest, what was a film that you saw when you didn't see the Christmas one?
I'd have to go back and look at.
I just wonder whether it was worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I was surprised by. I remember at the end of this Tales from Halloween, I sort of looked at you and said, "Oh, you know, I really enjoyed that," and I was actually, and you went, "God, I thought it was awful," and I was really quite surprised by that reaction, because I thought, well, you know, the whole point of this, the way I saw it, was they were trying to homage something like sort of Tales from the Crypt or whatever from the 80s. You know, it had that feel, and I thought they accomplished that quite well. The only thing I think they may have done that wasn't smart was I think maybe 11 stories was a tad too many. Yeah. For this anthology.
It's 10 stories, Keith.
Or 10 stories plus the joiner or whatever. Yeah, but you know, I thought it's. I actually rather enjoyed it, I have to say. I thought it was a nice one to end on. I
like those sort of films, and I think there's personally, I saw a lot more ropier stuff than that.
I thought, I ended up thinking to myself, this is what we should all do. We should all, you know, direct, you know,
let's get a better title sequence.
Yeah. Tales from the Crapper. Well, maybe we should.
No, I know, Clive. We've got an anthology script. We could sell it to them, couldn't we?
Yes, we have. No, I mean, look, I really wanted it to be good. I like a lot of the filmmakers involved, and just it didn't work for me. So yeah. I guess moving on.
Enough.
Which one did Neil Marshall direct? Just out of interest, because he
directed the last one, the Bad Seed one, with the one where Joe Dante pops up at the end.
Oh yeah.
Was it that one? I thought it was the one where I thought it was the one with the two neighbours fighting each other.
Yeah, no, that's This Means War. That was by the sort of the co-directors, Andrew Cash and John Skip.
Oh, okay. I thought. Well, I didn't figure that the. Oh, no,
it was the pumpkin one, as Keith says.
Oh right. Okay.
If you guys were FrightFest programming, which film out of the best ones we saw would you say that deserves to be the closing night film? Just as a little idea.
I would have. I don't know. I think I might have ended with Deathgasm.
I might have done the Christmas one, you know.
But the Christmas one had that 80s anthology feel as well, didn't it? I mean, it was just they'd intertwined the stories better.
It was just more interesting.
That also just had the one director. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, but it had three stories, but they intertwined them. They kept going back to the three stories. So one story would last almost the whole length of the film, but then they'd intercut it with the other story. So it's quite.
Yeah, it was three directors. It was three directors.
It wasn't reeling them off, which was very good as well, really.
I think because that was one of the problems with Tales of Halloween was that some of the stories would just end, wouldn't it? There wasn't really much of a payoff, and it would stop, and then you move on to the next one. While at least with the Christmas Horror Story, they all had a really good payoff, especially the final story.
And it had Shatner in it. It's going to be fucking brilliant if it's got Shatner in it. Come on.
I didn't know you were that obsessed with him, Keith.
Shatner's the man. Are you kidding? The Shat. He's brilliant. Love him.
Have you had a Shat lately?
Okay. Keith, what was your pick for movie hell?
Oh, shit. Okay. Mine was...
Oh, Shat.
Yeah, Shat. There you go. Nice join. Mine was the first movie on the second day, which was called Hellions. Yeah, it was a Canadian film. It had Robert Patrick in it. Was the kind of cameo by the, if you like, the big name. Now I'm not aware of. I've not seen it, but there was a film called Pontypool that this director Bruce McDonald did previously, which I've heard is rather good.
Yeah. This is why this film was kind of really disappointing, is because Pontypool is amazing, especially for the fact that it's very low budget and everything is from a radio station. So they're reporting on it. They're hearing reports about what's happening. And it was, that film was brilliant. And then this was kind of a letdown.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was, essentially it's about a this teenage girl who's discovers she's and she wants to reveal the news to her mum and all this sort of thing, but it all obviously takes place over Halloween, and she's dressed up in an angel costume during this, and these sort of monster pumpkin head type trick-or-treaters come round, and with intentions of sort of stealing her unborn child and turning it into a devil or something. And I have to admit, I struggled. This was the only film of the entire festival, and I watched all of the films every day, 25 films or whatever it was, and this was the only one that I struggled to stay awake in. And it was it was a morning film. It wasn't even a late night one. And I don't know, the whole Robert Patrick thing just felt like a winky thing. He didn't seem to, have a really involved character or part in it. And I don't know, maybe I'm being unfair. I don't know. But for me, it was just the obvious. Well, after I'd seen what you guys picked for movie hell, which there were a couple in there that I definitely agreed with. But then this one seemed like the next obvious choice, and I just didn't think it worked very well. And I'm even struggling to tell you what it's about, because I really wasn't that interested. I found my mind wandering, and it hasn't stayed in my head at all, really. So wasn't very impressed with this.
And I said, what a pile of shit. And this Norwegian Fright Fest.
Oh, you mean a pile of shat?
Yeah, this Norwegian Fright Fest guy made friends with. He runs a festival in Norway. He liked it because it's something to do with Norse mythology or something. I'm not quite sure what he was talking about.
Is it
really? Yeah, lovely guy, but
I found it weird to follow. I mean, it starts off very sort of photorealistic in a natural setting and all this sort of thing, but then it kind of goes into this bleached out sort of dream world, but I couldn't really figure out whether that was just in her head or whether the whole planet had gone like this, and if so, why no one was commented on it. Yeah, I don't know. Is that what it was? I was just kind of, I don't know. I was just kind of indifferent about this whole thing, really. I was like,
yeah. I mean, it did have kind of a feel that maybe it was like she was on a some sort of acid trip, or she was like a dream or something like that. Because they did this sort of day for night where the sky was pink.
Yeah, that looked really.
But but I mean, the thing was, when Robert Patrick turned up, he didn't bat an eyelid. Did he?
No, exactly. That's what I mean. So I was kind of unclear as to exactly what was going on, and I just wasn't. It didn't engage me. This is the problem with it. I just really, whereas a lot of films during this festival were really engaging and really interesting, and even if it wasn't, there were some that weren't my normal thing, but I really appreciated them and bought into them. This one, I just struggled to like, really.
Yeah, I was nearly falling asleep in that one as well.
Yeah, it was just like, it was just for me, just very average and forgettable. And as you can see, I've pretty much forgotten what happened in it. So, I mean, it had an interesting poster. You had the girl, in the angel costume, holding a shotgun rifle. But I don't know. I personally, this was my pick for Hell, because it didn't really interest or inspire me particularly.
I totally agree, Keith. I'm with you on that.
What did you think, Clive?
I didn't hate this one. I know obviously you do, Keith. It wasn't a completely successful film, but I thought there's some. It's difficult to talk about the bits I think are most interesting without spoiling it. So I'll tread carefully again. But I think there's some really strong images. I like all the sort of there's this whole thing where she's been carried through a pumpkin field, and they sort of tie in this sort of there's all this different Halloween imagery. I thought there were. I like that he was the director was really going for sort of. He was quite ambitious of what he was trying to achieve on what was clearly a very, very low budget, and it's just a shame that it's sort of after the sort of it goes into, let's call it the pink sky section, it sort of meanders a bit and loses a bit of focus, and it lost me a little bit there. I'll admit, but I think there's enough good stuff in there to make it maybe worth a watch if you're a fan of the director's work. But it wasn't one of the best films of the festival. But equally, I thought it was okay.
Well, you raised an interesting point there, Clive. And one thing I do want to say sort of generally is we spoke about how it was a very strong year this year. And that was the thing. Even the films, even the weaker films, this one included, and there were a few where I didn't totally hate the film, but there was something about a few of the films that didn't quite work. I felt this way about a few of them, where they were quite interesting, they were quite well made, but there was just something about them that didn't quite work. And a lot of it, as I said, there were a lot of films in this festival that seemed to be very vogue to halfway through the second act to take a bit of a 180 from where you think it's going, and it worked for some films. Some of the ones we've already mentioned were fantastic, but then there were other films that it did that which I didn't quite buy. I know there were a couple of films on I think it was the last day, perhaps, or the second from last day, where they were very good. There were some great concepts, but it just didn't quite work. They're not springing to mind at the moment, but there were definitely a couple I felt that way.
But Keith, I think that's a good place to ask Mike what his pick for movie Hell is.
My choice for movie Hell is a film that was bigged up. I talked to someone at the Phoenix the night before. It was a female, but she said, "Oh yeah, I've seen these films. Oh, the one to watch is called Some Kind of Hate." I thought, oh, okay. Well, at least it's not like Stuart Wright telling me it's a good film, because if he tells me it's a good film, it's normally a load of old shit. So I
thought, this was one of his films of the festival, wasn't it, Mike?
So that speaks volumes about his northern temperament and his taste.
No offense, Stuart Wright. We love
you. No offense, Stuart. We like you, Stuart.
I find I tend to agree with him more than disagree with him.
Stuart. Me and Stuart, we know each other. Okay, we love to have this banter. Just ask him about what I think. Yeah, just ask him what I think about left-handed guitarists. Anyway, so I went and saw this film, and to give you a synopsis, it's an angsty teenager that has a bit of trouble at school, and he fights against the bully, and he gets sent to this what looks like a teenagers in trouble refuge religious typey commune in the middle of the desert somewhere. And the basic thrust of the story is that his anger at certain things that then happen when they're up there, when he's being picked on and all this sort of stuff, apart from the fact some fit bird finds him interesting because he's interesting. He looks sort of, what's the word, goth, very goth, and all the rest of it. So she sort of, who's probably one of the fittest women in the film, apart from the other
well, they're a couple.
instructor. Yeah, I know. I'm sure you'll talk about that. But and then what it does, the idea is that there's a ghost of someone who's been wronged. You like something at the beginning of the film, which is a bit like a clue as to this event that happened. And without spoiling too much, his angst and his anger sort of is tapped into by this mysterious thing, and this spirit. And then the film is, follows very, very similar tropes as far as I'm concerned. And it definitely is like a by the numbers movie. So I think Kyle's coming in the room, so I'm just going to go in the other room for a second while he's in here.
And the sad thing is, we actually missed the Hallow to see this film. It was on at the same time as the Hallow.
We missed the film, and I was expecting quite a lot from it, and all I got was. And the director came on the stage, bless him. He thought he's a rock star, jumping around, making lots of noise, which is always a bad sign. In his leather jacket, trying to make himself look 10 years younger. With a t-shirt and a tan and a bit of a hairy chest showing. But, to be fair, he's made a film and everything, but it just didn't do anything for me whatsoever. It was like the biggest letdown on the festival. And not only that, the thing that's in the film is like a low rent fucking Freddy Krueger as far as I'm concerned. And the thing had no suspense. It didn't scare me. I didn't find the main thing that you're meant to be scared of frightening or scary. And I thought the practical gore effects were really shit. So none of it was convincing. I didn't find the entity, or whatever you want to call it, the antagonistic creature or whatever is in this film, that if you do watch it, scary. And it left me totally feeling, what was that? Well, that, apart from there's a couple of fit women in it. So I don't know what you guys think, but I thought it was overrated, very overrated. And I don't know, maybe people read too much into it. I just thought I've seen a lot better films than that deal with that subject matter. And you got It Follows and things like that, which are more impressive and more interesting and more creative. And I didn't think it looked particularly good either.
Well, for me, I think the problem was that, the director came on stage and he said, well, what I wanted to make was like a Freddy Krueger or a Carrie White kind of film. And the problem was that he introduces his villain halfway through the film.
Yeah.
Now, those films, you had the villain from the very beginning, and they're actually scary, Either with Carrie White, you're either following them, and you feel sympathy for them.
There's no threat or scare or anything in this film.
So guys, I didn't watch this film, obviously, but
you're lucky.
My question is, so that slow build-up didn't give you a chance to sort of get to know the main character and feel for him, and in say like a way like Wolf Creek does,
you get flashbacks
before anything happens.
Let me answer that. The thing is, it sets it up as another kind of film.
Yeah.
It sets it up that this guy is going to... Because they keep pushing his buttons because they want a reaction. And it did look like, from the very beginning, that he was going to explode and he was going to be the guy who's going to do all the killing. And then halfway through this, he meets this... They're calling a kindred spirit.
We don't want to give too much away this, Simon, do we?
No, but I'm just saying, and then it stops being about him and more about this spirit, this creature that's going around killing the people. And I was enjoying the first story. I was enjoying the first half, and then once it changed, then it's when it lost it for me.
Yeah, I mean, you know, for me, this film was, I think it had some real pacing and structure issues. I mean, it was incredibly slow to get going, incredibly slow. And like you said, I think, you know, the director was there, this guy, Adam Egypt Mortimer, who was, you know, I give him an absolute, you know, he's passionate and enthusiastic, but also massively sort of full of himself. And even though he had some of the cast and crew with him, you know, in the Q&A, they didn't really get a word in edgeways, because he was so, you know, enthusiastic about this. But he kind of set it up as a feminist slasher movie and wanted this sort of female Freddy Krueger type character. But as Simon absolutely correctly said, you know, this is not introduced to quite late in the film, and it's also not very effective or particularly scary. It's a cute looking girl with a few razor blades around her neck, you know, and yeah, you've got a couple of hotties in it and whatever, running around in Daisy Dukes type shorts and things, but it you know, it was really slow to get going. It had some good points, definitely, but structurally, I just don't think it quite worked overall, and I'd come out wishing I'd seen the Hallow instead, which you know, isn't a great review, I suppose. I wish I watched another movie, but yeah, it was, you know, I probably didn't hate it to the same level that Mike did, but
some kind of shite, I called it.
Yeah, I know you were very scathing about it from the moment we came out, but
if it wasn't bigged up by someone and saying, oh, it's great, it's amazing, blah blah blah, then fair enough, but it was just so mediocre.
Right, well, it just leaves me to talk about my pick for movie hell. And yes, well, over the years we've had some very strong opening films at FrightFest.
Yeah, like Eden
unfortunately,
Lake. Yay!
and some weak ones as well.
Yes, we've had some weak ones, and I have to say this year's one was probably the weakest, in my humble opinion. And my pick is Cherry Tree.
Yeah.
An Irish film, wasn't it? I believe.
Yes. Well, the story is that there's this coven of witches, and they make a deal with this young girl to save her father, who's dying from cancer. And of course, things don't kind of work out. I think that's the sort of the basic you can talk about it.
There's lots of creepy crawlies in it for some reason, isn't there?
Yeah, there was a lot of centipedes in it, and cherries. I think there was lots of shots of cherries and cherry trees, and
yeah, there was. Yeah.
I think for me, why I didn't like it was the script wise, it felt like it just needed another rewrite. You know, it felt like they'd rushed into production with it. Because there was this stuff in it that didn't make sense, or people's reactions to stuff. Like, okay, there's a little bit of a spoiler, but I think I just have to say it, is that the girl gets pregnant, and it's a very fast pregnancy, but yet her best friend doesn't, you know, bat an eyelid at this. You know, you know, her pregnancy's only taken a matter of, you know, was it weeks or even just a couple of months? Certainly wasn't 9 months.
Yeah.
And she doesn't bat an eyelid, doesn't comment on it at all. And yeah, and this is the fact that you know, these witches, they sort of make out that they've been around for quite a while, and yet they couldn't have found somebody else to be the chosen one. There was nothing there saying why this girl could be the only one. You know, I'm sure there was other situations where they could have found another girl to do this, but why it was just this girl didn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, I didn't enjoy this as an opening film either. I thought it I appreciated it was a low budget horror, and but it wasn't particularly. And again, we can't spoil it, but the actual beat was pathetic. I thought actually, yeah.
I mean, the stuff with the boyfriend as well was kind of hilarious, especially near the end.
Yeah. I mean, thank God Turbo Kid was the second film. Otherwise, we'd have really been given up, right? They should have opened the festival with Turbo Kid.
Yeah, but I think because there was nobody from that film at the festival.
Yeah,
this is the thing. With an opening film, you want guests, you want the people to be there. So I think Turbo Kid would have been a better film. I still haven't seen it. That was one I missed.
Turbo Kid was top notch.
It was very good. Yeah, very nice.
It was great.
Yeah, it would have been a better film to open the festival with than say Cherry Tree.
Or maybe they should have chosen, as she was the guest of honor, one of the Barbara Crampton films, which interestingly we haven't picked any of those.
Well, one of them was very good, I thought.
Yeah, exactly.
We're Still Here. That was quite good.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but I seem to have missed all of them.
Right.
All the films she was in, I missed.
Yeah. Wow, well, I got her autograph. She signed my my Blu-ray cover. That's the main thing I wanted.
Did she sign your tongue? Did she sign your tongue? No.
Yeah. With the inside of her thigh.
Oh dear, you went there. Okay.
So Clive, what did you think of Cherry Tree?
I thought it was poor. I mean, this might have been my movie hell if it hadn't already been picked. It didn't really work. I admired its ambition. I thought considering its budget, it really went for it, and it tried to sort of have a sort of Fulci stroke Argento-esque sort of like bonkers conclusion, but it just didn't have the chops to pull it off, sadly. And I'd agree that because there were it kept throwing in all this sort of rich symbolism and imagery, but there was never a sense that there was a sort of guiding idea behind this. It was more like, this will be a cool visual thing, and the villain was a bit one note. It was, there was very little ambiguity once you got past the 10-minute mark. It was like everyone was evil.
Oh, that's right.
And but I sort of enjoyed parts of it. It was very broad, but yeah, it was pretty uneven. So yeah, it didn't work for me.
There was a couple of bits where you were like, I don't think I mean, because it's all set in a school, but yet all the girls there are, in their 20s.
Yeah.
Very much so. So then when you sort of like see them showering together all naked, it's like
that's great.
That felt really voyeuristic, that scene, especially as they were all supposed to be 15.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But clearly all in their 20s.
Well,
he was trying to do his De Palma, but not pulling it off, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's I don't know. It wasn't a great one to start with, but the nice thing was it got stronger. So
yeah. Well, what do you reckon, guys? Do you reckon that like the opening and closing film of Fright Fest should be strong?
I think you need to kick it off with a bang. They could have. You need to have something which gets everyone in the mood. Oh, this is going to be a good festival. Not start it off on a fucking sour note with like with something that's a bit weak. Really, I think you need to start off with a fairly good cracker movie, because otherwise, there's no kudos to being the opening film. If you just think, oh, we don't give a shit, they're just going to be mediocre, and we'll put it up there if we get a world premiere.
Well, look, no one wants to sit down and watch rubbish movies, do they?
No, of course not.
You're not going to put your hand up and say, you know what, I really think the opening film should be rubbish. But I think there's something to be said with, if you have the best film of the festival as the opening film, then everything afterwards is going to feel a bit of an anticlimax. So
yeah, I mean, like as I said, Deathgasm would have been a good film to start. I mean, one year we had Black Sheep open the festival, and that was a great opener.
That was a great opener.
What did you guys think of James Wan's Demonic?
Rubbish.
Did you?
I thought it was all right.
I thought it was rubbish.
I've started drifting off in that one. I thought
it was a late night one.
It was very by the numbers. It was a candidate for hell for me.
It was, not
I
agree. I thought that James Wan, he didn't make it, so he just put
he just presented it.
Yeah.
I was disappointed because I've liked Frank Grillo in the Purge movies and the stuff he's done, but and Maria Bello as well in many good stuff. But
she's wonderful.
She is, and and they do their darndest, but it just felt a bit plodding.
Yeah, they tried to do this super twist thing, and and have it police procedural. I thought they did it much better in that other one with Eric Bana. You know, that police procedural voodoo possession film. I thought that was
Deliver Us from Evil or whatever.
Yeah,
I've not seen that. Is that good? Is that worth a watch?
Well, it's okay. It's not. Don't build it up too much, but it's better than Demonic.
That's Scott Derrickson, isn't it? Director of Sinister.
Yes. Yeah. He's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So I enjoyed that police procedural mixed blend with demonic shit. So.
Well, I mean, that's what I quite liked about Demonic was the combination of those two.
Yeah,
I thought that kind of worked really well because
I've seen the other one, so in my not to say that my opinion is the one, but what I'm saying is I think that you would really enjoy, if you enjoyed Demonic, you'd really enjoy that.
Okay.
Definitely.
I want to check that out now because I quite enjoyed Demonic actually.
So I mean, guys, we talked a lot about mainstream films here. Did you get out to the Discovery screens at all during Fright Fest or much?
I saw a couple of films. I saw Final Girl, which I really enjoyed, which was the Abigail Breslin film with Wes Bentley in it. And I thought that was really good. I thought it was very enjoyable. And I saw Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter.
I nearly saw that as well, didn't I, Simon?
You nearly did, yeah. You were quite surprised to see me there.
I was in the wrong screen.
And like, what are you sitting at the back?
You said everyone's got tickets. I thought, and then I saw Carolyn Munro, bless her, who's,
don't go there.
There, right. And I know Keith wanted to go there, but yeah. So basically,
Star Crash.
Yeah, you sort of you made your excuses and left and went to the proper screen.
What did I? Oh, what I did, I didn't go to a film. We went to a filmmaking talk thing, DIY filmmaking, and I didn't really. The thing is, I actually got some useful information there, even though most of it wasn't very useful to me. But the fact is, if you get one thing that assists you in your future filmmaking endeavors, then I think it was worth it, So
Clive, you went to the DIY filmmaking. How was it?
Yeah, I did. It's the first time they've done something like that, and I thought it was interesting. The sort of spiel in the sort of catalogue made it sound like it was just going to be a how to crowdfund your low budget horror movie, but actually it was a bit more wide ranging than that, and they had a nice range of kind of people who tried different routes, which was nice. So you had the Blaine brothers who had the I didn't see their film that was on
Nina Forever.
Nina Forever.
Yeah, I saw it. Again, it's like I couldn't see what all the fuss was about, other than the fact there's a lot of nudity in it, and but it was made for 20,000. I was going back
exactly. I admired what they did. But,
I am obsessed with budgets, and like Night Fair, just to go back to that, was €500,000 apparently is what they got for that. So they had a slightly bigger budget than they had for Nina Forever. So they did a great job, but again, it was very mundane in the locales.
The thing I took from the filmmakers panel, because I didn't really learn a great deal from it that I didn't already know, sort of thing. But the one thing I thought was quite interesting was when they were talking about, when you're building your campaign for your crowdfunding, to kind of reverse engineer it and really look at, do some research on similar films and what the budget those particular films were and what they sort of made in the marketplace, whether it was video on demand or straight to DVD or whatever.
So you get realistic expectations of what sort of ballpark you're in, because if you don't have a name, then that does downgrade the expectations of what that type of movie is going to do.
Yeah.
I mean, having done research for myself and having done crowdfunding, I did notice that there was a short film that had Benedict Cumberbatch in it.
No way. Fucking hell.
And they didn't even have to do a video. It was just a picture of him, and then literally all the for putting money into the film, the goodies you got were like signed photographs, meet him on the set, have your photograph taken with him. And they raised double the amount they were looking for. So having a name in there does help.
Having a cucumber patch certainly helps your film.
Indeed.
So was there any other films you guys saw at the in the Discovery screen?
I went to see a film called Never Let Go, which was a thriller directed by Jay Ford, who I believe was behind the what were they called? Those films? The Dead films. Yeah.
The Indian Dead films.
The only reason I went to see this is I knew I know of the lead actress in it, who Alex Brunning, who I work with quite a bit. She was the lead in his first short film that he made probably about 10 years ago now, scarily. And this was a pretty meaty role for her. She was essentially playing the sort of action heroine role, and it was kind of, it was a bit of a sort of low budget Taken type action thriller. But I mean, it was interesting. They had the filmmakers there, talked about the genesis of it and whatever. But this was very much a thriller rather than a horror film. I mean, the horror of it was, somebody takes her child basically, and she's then spending the movie trying to track the child down. And there's lots of running and far away. But it was quite impressive. I thought, wow, it's good. But other than that, I'll be honest, I kind of stuck to the main screen really this year.
How about you, Clive?
I saw quite a few Discovery Screen films, and I find that often you can really find some nice sort of low budget gems in there. And of the ones I saw, I mean, some of them were my favourite films of the festival. I mean, the Hallow was a Discovery Screen film. I'd also, if you want to look at what you can do on a like super low budget in terms of genre and how original you can be with that, then I'd say you need to look at Curtain, which is like just this sort of surreal, crazy, bonkers movie with like this just very high concept of a woman who moves into an apartment and finds that there's a portal to another dimension in her bathroom that keeps eating her shower curtains. And then goes from there. So, and it's got this kind of, it reminded me a bit of Frank Henenlotter, sort of like the Basket Case movies in terms of its sort of tone, which is quite sort of comedic and slightly campy in places. And that was great fun. I'd also say that They Look Like People was an absolutely brilliant piece of low budget filmmaking where they concentrated more on character, and it was a really sort of like moving sort of look at friendship and mental issues, where the horror you're not sure whether the horror is just in the characters' minds or whether it's actually something that's happening. So where they have almost like Donnie Darko type setup where the guy keeps getting phone calls from a mysterious voice that's telling him that there's a war coming and the aliens are taking over, and they look just like normal people.
Yeah.
Those two were the big standouts, and also I've got to give a shout out to to Future Shock, the story of 2000 AD, which is already screened at London Film Festival, I think, previous year. But if you're a fan of 2000 AD or just interested in comics generally, it's absolutely fascinating. Got just for everyone you'd want interviewed, with the exception of Alan Moore, who famously won't be interviewed about anything. So it just hit everything you wanted it to hit. It was stylishly put together, and it was everything I would want from that documentary. And I hope they get a chance to do an extended cut and put even more goodies in. So yeah.
What about you, Simon?
Well, the only other thing I saw at the Discovery screen was the short film showcase number 2, which showed the Clemens brothers' surgery in,
which is great.
Which was great. It was really good, and I had quite a few other good short films there. Now the thing was for me, I would have rather seen those short films in front of the features than the ones they actually showed, because
they had all these
this year they had a production
company.
They had all these Channel 4 ones. A production company had gone out with a commission from Channel 4 to make these, and they're available on the website, and so they would, periodically put these in front of the main feature. And I would have rather seen maybe the films they showed at the short film showcase in front of the films instead of those ones, because they really were kind of hit and miss, weren't they? These Channel 4 produced shorts.
I thought they were not very good. Basically,
yeah, they
didn't do anything for me at all.
Absolutely. Do you guys know? Can I ask? How do the powers that be at Fright Fest? Do you know how they decide what is going to be a main screen film and what's going to be a Discovery screen film?
No idea.
I think it's. I don't have like 100% idea on this, but I believe it's to do with what is a premiere. Is it a European premiere? Is it a world premiere? Is it a UK premiere? Is it sponsored by one of the sponsors? And who's distributing it? I think maybe, and the mainstream films tend to have the bigger names in, but not necessarily, not always, but pretty much. So if they got a lot of guests coming in, and they know it's going to be a popular film, then yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, there was 2 films in the Discovery screen that everybody wanted to see on the main screen. That was Bite and Howl.
Banjo probably as well.
And Banjo, yeah. But I know Bite and Howl they sold out very quickly.
Well, I was going to go and see Howl, and in the end, I decided not to. Because it conflicted with Night Fair, and I wanted to see. Was it Some Kind of Hate? I can't remember. I can't remember what it was, but
yeah, Howl was on the same time as the Hallow and Some Kind of Hate for us. Yeah.
So that's another reason why I was particularly pissed off, was because I'd actually missed Tim thought it was a really
What's
good werewolf
Howl?
film.
I don't even. Oh, it was a werewolf film. Wow, the title.
It was a werewolf.
Werewolf on a Train.
Okay. I didn't.
Yeah.
Do you know? I didn't
look
even.
Really good. Look really interesting. And I asked one of the Fright Fest organisers why it's not on the main screen, and he said, "Well, it's just a werewolf film, isn't it?" And I thought, "Oh, well, that's a good answer."
Sometimes it does seem to be like this is, if it's one of the organisers' favourite films of the festival, then it will, it will play the main screen, won't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the last day, I think every film being shown was Alan's favourite film. He was always going up and saying, "This is the best film of the festival."
But if I was organising a festival, then I'd probably do the same. Yeah, I want the films that I love to get the most push, because I'm passionate about them, and that's what you want.
Oh yeah. I know. It's just it was funny that Alan came on and he introduced Curved, Night Fair, Emily as his this is the best film of the festival, and he comes on for the next film and he goes, "This is the best film of the festival," and you're like, "Wait a minute, Did you just say that?
You're so much better than last week's audience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you keep saying it, you're going to be right eventually, aren't you? I guess.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So, any last thoughts about the Shiz Festival?
I thought it was good. It's really solid, really, and I got that sort of vibe from the programming. Really, it looked like the festival of old, and I think they've cracked the 3-screen thing. Even the ticketing, even though it was a bit of a ball ache for Clive's broadband connection, I thought that the way that you didn't have to then go and change it for other tickets or anything like that, it worked.
And the fact that you didn't have to go and queue up at 8 o'clock every morning to get your seats.
I tell you what was also good was that on the Sunday they sort of had, because they had some karaoke bullshit up at some pub. And that was quite nice on the Sunday, just to go back and get maybe an extra night's kit, because by the end of, when you've done Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you need an extra hour or two maybe if you want to see that number of films, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't got as much as many years experience of Fright Fest as you guys to draw upon, but for me, I thought it was very well organized, very enjoyable. And it was quite nice that there weren't that many sort of like big Hollywood films in the mix this time. It was kind of, you know, films from all over the world, and some with smaller budgets. And I, you know, it was just very enjoyable. There's some really good stuff in there. You know, and we haven't mentioned all of them, but, you know, because there are a lot. So I encourage people to maybe get a Rob Wickings page and read Clive's, you know, Devil's Dozen or whatever you've called it, because you know, there was a lot of good stuff in here. Really was.
Yeah. So I think they've hit on a good format now, and I think that it's pretty solid now. So I thought it was great.
Yep, and I would like to add, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh man, I really wish that sounds great, but now I've got to wait another year. Every year they run a Halloween all-nighter, and which they'll be releasing tickets for soon. So if you fancy just a taste of what Fright Fest is like, then check out the I think it's frightfest.co.uk website, and or go to their Facebook page, and they'll post details up there of the lineup soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. Oh, sorry.
Well, hey, look, I'm a fan of the festival, so I'm happy to sort of, you know,
well, also
give them a bit of a push.
No, and they do. I remember me and Clive went to see it. It was kind of like a one-off screening, but it was really good. Was they did It Follows a few, you know, end of last year or whenever it was, and you know, that's good that they do run these things occasionally, these screenings, and, you know, usually get guests along and stuff like that. So if you're into all that, it's always worth a visit. Definitely.
That's it. And then February they do Fright Fest Glasgow as well, so which is like a Fright Fest on a smaller scale.
Yeah, much more like Fright Fest as it started out in the Prince Charles. So,
which interestingly enough, they actually utilised the Prince Charles for the first time this year as one of the screens, didn't they?
They did,
they
yes.
did, yeah.
Which is a good idea.
Yeah, that worked really well. Very enjoyable. Very enjoyable.
Well, that just leaves us to finish in our normal way, just asking everybody how we can find their works. So, Mike, how can we find your work?
www.apocalypticconservatory.com.
Clive, how we can find your work?
You can check out my podcast that I do with Rob Wickings called The A to Z of SFF at theA2ZofSFF.com. Or if you want to check out my films, go onto Vimeo and look for my page, Clive Ashenden.
Keith?
Yeah, go to YouTube, put in British Eyles, Eyles spelled Eyles, as in my family name. And my short films are there for your viewing.
And you can find my work at independentrunnings.com. So please check out our Facebook page and give us a like. Just look for Movie Heaven, Movie Hell. We're on Twitter at Movie Heaven Hell. And also you can find us on YouTube if you just search Movie Heaven, Movie Hell. So that just leaves me to thank everybody for doing the podcast.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening, and look out for our next episode.
Bye.
Bye.
Whoa.